and welcome to Family Bible Time this week. We're going to start with our quiz on the story from a few weeks ago. Let's get started.
Who did Abraham ask to find Isaac a wife? His servant. Where did the servant travel to? Nahor. Who did the servant meet? Rebekah. What did the servant ask Rebekah to do? Give him water. What was the name of Rebekah's brother? Laban.
It's now time for this week's story. I'm going to start by telling the story in my own words. Then I'm going to read a bit from the Bible, the International Children's Bible. The story this week is from Genesis 27. It's when Jacob tricks Isaac. So firstly, there were twin brothers, Jacob and Esau. Esau was the oldest, and he was very hairy all over his body. Whereas Jacob, the younger one, was very smooth all over his body. He had hair on his head, but not much on his body. Now, Isaac, the dad, loved Esau the most, whereas Rebekah, the mum, loved Jacob the most. And one day, when Isaac was old and blind, he asked Esau to come into his room. He said to Esau, "I want to pray God's blessing over you." And he said, "Go and do some hunting and bring me some food, and then I'll pray for the blessing." Rebekah overheard this, and she loved Jacob more than Esau. She called Jacob over. She said, Jacob, your dad wants to pray God's blessing on Esau. I want him to pray it for you. Go and get some sheep's wool and cover your body in it to make you hairy like your brother. Put on your brother's clothes so you smell like your brother. Then go in with the food I make for your father, and you will get the blessing from God. So, Jacob does as his mum tells him, and then goes in with the food, with the sheep's wool all over his arm and his brother's clothes on. He says, "Here I am, Father. I've brought you your food." Now Isaac, being blind, can't see who it is, but he hears the voice and goes, "You have the voice of Jacob, not Esau. Let me feel your arms." Because he knows that Esau is the hairy one and Jacob is the smooth one. So he feels his arms and goes, "You're hairy like Esau, but you sound like Jacob. Let me smell you." He smells Jacob. He says, "You smell and feel like Esau, yet sound like Jacob. Let me pray the blessing on you." So the trick has worked. And so he prays this blessing on him. "May God give you plenty of rain and good soil. Then you will have plenty of grain and wine. Many nations will serve you. May peoples bow down to you. May you be master over your brothers. May your mother's sons bow down to you. May everyone who curses you be cursed, and may everyone who blesses you be blessed." Jacob then leaves Isaac. Esau comes home with the food, comes into the room, and finds out the blessing had been prayed over his brother, Jacob. And he was incredibly angry. And Rebekah told Jacob to run away and go to her brother Laban. And that is our story for this week. Come back next week to hear what happens next. So here we have a story about trickery and deceit. I wonder what we can learn from it. So the first thing to point out is when Rebekah was pregnant with the boys, she was told by God that the older shall serve the younger. You can see this in Genesis 25:23. So Rebekah knows what God has planned. But instead of waiting for God to do it in his way, and the best way, because God's way is always the best way, not always the easiest, but always the best way. She tries to do it in her own way. She tries to make it happen how she wants it to happen. And she does this by tricking her own husband. So here we can learn that we are not to try and do the promises in our own way, but to let God do the things he wants done in his own way, which is the best way. The second thing is to look at the blessing that Isaac prays over Jacob. It's very similar to the one prayed over Abraham in Genesis 12. You can read that for yourself in your own time. But the promise was about land, being a nation, and those that bless him are blessed, and those that curse him are cursed. Now the three core parts to the blessing over Jacob are promises of land, promises being a nation and being bowed down to, and promise of those that bless him will be blessed, and those that curse him will be cursed. So we can see that this promise was passed down from Abraham to Isaac, and Isaac to Jacob, and later on Jacob to his children. So the promises that God has made them in this family are truly passed down, and they trust God that these promises will come true, that they will have land, they will be a nation, and people that bless them will be blessed, and the people that curse them will be cursed. However, this promise has not happened for Abraham while he was alive. It hasn't happened for Isaac while he's alive. And spoilers, it doesn't happen for Jacob while he's alive. It doesn't even happen for Jacob's children, which we will learn about shortly. It happens from this story that we've just looked at of Jacob tricking Isaac. It doesn't happen for at least 500 years, probably more. I haven't done the calculations, but it's at least 500 years. So the other thing we can learn from this, as well as to trust God to do the promises in his own way, in his own time, or in his own way, are that God does his promises that he gives us, not only in his own way, but in his own time. So the challenge for us is, do we trust God to fulfill the promises he's made us in his own way and in his own time? I'll say that again. Do we trust God to fulfill the promises he's made to us in his own way and in his own time? Because the promises he makes us may not happen in the time that we are alive. So the promises God makes me may not happen while I'm alive. They may happen while I'm alive, but I may not see them happen. So I'll say the challenge again. Do we trust God to fulfill the promises he has made us in his own way and his own time?
I wonder what you liked about the story. I wonder what you disliked about the story. I wonder how you feel about your siblings. I wonder what promises God has made to you.
It's now time for our prayer activity. This week, I want you to first catch any promises God might be giving you. So I want you to think about what God is communicating to you and catch it about your promises. Once you've done this, I want you to then chat to God about how you feel about those promises. And one promise He's made all of us is, if we believe that Jesus is the Son of God, we will have eternal life. And so you can talk to Him about how you feel about that. But a reminder with that is, God's done all the work already for us to have eternal life. But if we believe, we will have eternal life. So if you don't catch a promise from God, that's a promise you can talk to Him about. You can chat to Him about how you feel. Thank you very much for joining me this week for Family Bible Time. I hope you remember the challenge of, do you trust God to fulfill the promises He's made you in His own way and His own time? I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.